Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well today on the 22nd of July 2025. Whatever we're doing today, I hope we're doing extremely well. I'd love to know what plans you've got today, what you're doing, where you're going, what you think of the transfer news so far. I'm going to prefix this with and what we do here is we've got over the news. I report the news. I give you my opinion. Doesn't mean that my opinion is right. Doesn't mean my opinion is wrong. Sometimes I get things right. Sometimes I get things wrong. Most of the time I'll probably get stuff wrong. But I think one of the good things to do about this is this light is bugging me. Is that better? I just want to see if that's any better. Bugging me a lot. Let's see what goes on here. Yeah, so I think it's quite an interesting time to be a United fan. No, that's bugging me. That's not great. If I can get this right. Anyway, messing around with this light. So yes, it's really interesting time to be a United fan. There's so much going on right now, and it's quite clear that the two biggest reporters really when it comes to United stuff, they're leading with a bunch of stuff. So try and get into the chat as much as you can if you like. You know what, I will always try to give everybody an opportunity as long as we are respectful. I'll always say this: get into the chat. The more outlandish stuff sometimes the better, obviously as long as it's respectful. Obviously respect other people's opinions. We may not share the same opinions, we may have the same opinions, we may not, but again I try not to limit opinions here. I am of the opinion that a different opinion to mine, opposite opinion to mine, something out there is perfectly fine to discuss. So today's show, don't shoot me for some of the stuff that I'm going to bring you today. A lot of it is not regurgitation of the same stuff, but you know, we've got to report what's out there, and I do feel like there's starting to be a little bit of spin, because ultimately we have only signed 2 players. But let's start off with that. In-Burmo deal all done yesterday. I was going to jump on kind of like, but I just thought to myself that the deal was already done, and all that I'd be doing is basically coming on and tell you intelligent people basically what you already know. The specifics are that £71 million deal, 65 plus 6. Transfer contract up until 2030 with an option of a +1, and the reported wages, not including the bonuses, is £150,000 a week. So triple in is 150, triple in is 50,000. What you got paid, but again, you know, I do think that 150,000 is better. Than kind of what I was expecting. So I was expecting around at 200,000 mark, but 150,000 I think is really good. So In-Burmo will be on tour. I'm really glad that he signed. I think he's going to be a transformative player. I just wonder how we're going to get him, how the front three is going to look, and that's a good segue into what we're talking about. So the thumbnail. There's our Ornstein and Romano update, and some of it good, some of it you could tell that Ornstein's been briefed by the club, and we can talk about that as well. I'd love to know your opinions on it. I don't know if you've read anything or seen anything about what Ornstein said, what Romano has said yesterday. So yesterday I did a video on, basically there was a Christopher Michael top tier in for the German league, basically reporting, and again I can only go by what is out there, and reporting that we basically entered talks. We started talking to Leipzig for the Šeško deal, so start really putting in some concrete things in place there. So Pavel, who is obviously our scouting, our, you know, he's our guy in, or he should be our guy in regards to transfers such as this, the developmental side, and looking for those transfers, you know, for those sort of new players across foreign markets. So he knows him. He brought him through from the Red Bull group. So for me, that was a big tick. And the fact now that there's lots of noise and our striker search is going to intensify, we do want a number 9. So all the reports yesterday were basically how we're going to go in for him. We've already started to talk. So top tier out there in the Bundesliga. So, you know, I think it was only responsible to kind of give my opinion on that. And my opinion is still that I think we are looking for a Šeško. And I think that's as a discussion point, I think it's a really good discussion point. And I think that if you want to get your comment in about the striker reports, then I think now is the time to do it, so we can discuss that. Now, don't shoot me for this. I am just reporting this from Fabrizio. This has come out. There's 2 points here. Number one is that United are not, and this is according to Fabrizio, are not in discussions yet, or any major discussions with the transfer targets. And I'll give my opinion on this as well. They obviously appreciate Šeško, Jackson, Watkins. There's a bunch of strikers in there yet, but we're looking for a striker, but we are not in concrete talks. Now, do I believe this? No. I think that this is a ploy. I think this is a good thing in some respects. I think this is a ploy that we're trying to use. I think we are purposefully putting it out there that we are obviously looking for a striker, and I think we are looking to try to get these prices down. So Jackson, Chelsea want upwards of 80 million for Jackson. I don't know what Chelsea are smoking. I don't really know what is in the water over there, but I think that is an absolute ludicrous price. I'm hoping that prices us out of any deal for him. For me, it's an instantaneous no. You know, again, you may have an opinion that he may do a job at the right price. Could he do a job? I just, his finishing for me and the eye test, he started the season off quite well, but he's not for me. Šeško is the one that I'd go to. I do think I do think that Šeško, that there are talks and things happening around him, but whether that's as concrete as the top tiers over in the Bundesliga trying to make it out to be, whether they're trying to get a bit of a head start, and United have gone to Fabrizio and kind of tried to quell that down, because obviously they don't necessarily want to pay that top tier price for Šeško. Now, Yokarez is on the thumbnail. Please don't shoot me for this one. I've got to report it because Fabrizio has said it, so I think it's important to bring it into the show. Yokarez. So according to Fabrizio, we have been encouraged and offered to make a late bid for Yokarez, and the Yokarez saga continues. Now, again, Fabrizio's not going to put that out there unless it's true. So United have been offered to put in or been told, or offered, invited, wherever you like, to put in a bid for Yokarez. Now, I've been saying this for ages, since I knew that he wanted to go to Arsenal. Was that not because I don't think he's a good player, but basically because that he's gone to Arsenal. I think this is nothing more than Sporting trying to get the price that they want to get, and I'm hoping that United don't fall into this trap. Yokarez wants to go to Arsenal. I get that completely. Now that's his choice. We made our choice in going for another striker first, and he was our second choice. I think that was a bit of a mistake, but whatever you think about the Yokarez deal, I was always of the opinion that I think he's the right striker. He can walk into this team, he can walk into an Amarin system, the logical choice for this team. But I think now we are being pulled into this, into a game, and I hope that United are really smart here and we stop this. Unless there is a realistic possibility that we can get this deal done, I think that we need to be moving away from this and let Arsenal crack on with that deal. I think he's invested in Arsenal. I think he wants to go to Arsenal. I don't know what Arsenal are doing, if I'm being fair. You've got this free run at one of the best European striker last year. I don't know why you're not getting this deal done. If I was Arsenal, I would get this deal done. He wants to come to you. You've won this race. I think he'll be immense for you, and you need to put pressure on your club to get this deal done. I would love him here, but I just think this is getting very, very complex, and I think we need to move on. So I would like to see the club kind of squash this and just say, look, we're not in. So Walid says, loving the content, bro. Thank you so much. I'm loving the comment. Thank you so much for putting in your comment. It really means a lot, and you guys, I want you guys to drive the show, and as I say, all I do is I come and report what I've heard. What striker would you get if it was up to you? When I think about strikers, I think about age profile. I think that's really clear. Do I think we need to take a risk on another striker? I don't think we can take a risk. So I'd actually go 2 strikers. Šeško for me, I think, is of and we have to look at the availability of strikers. So for me, Šeško would be the one based on the profile of the player, what I've seen of him. The price is a little high, but when you have to look at the market and the Bundesliga, and when you factor in his age, I factor in there is a ceiling for him, as in the ceiling isn't there, so he hasn't reached his potential. I think he's a bit further along than an Ekitike. I do think that he's going to fit the system. He's young enough, so potentially there, you spend 70 million on him. If he wants to go to Real Madrid at some point when he's 28 years old, we could still have him for 5 years. So I think Šeško for me makes complete sense. And we know him quite well. We've scouted him as well, and also what I like is he's done the hard yards. So he's gone through the RB group. He's done the hard yards. So I think for me, his attitude is right as well. And yes, it is a bit of a punt, but he is where I would go. Would you rather sign a striker, midfielder, or keeper? If you could only sign one after that pre-season game against Leeds, I think a midfielder should be the priority. That's a bloody good question. After watching the pre-season game, if I could only pick one position, that's a really, really good question. You think a midfielder should be the priority? I think you can go anyway on this one. I think whatever you say here, I think you're valid. The reason why I wouldn't go for a midfielder straight off is because I think we're so stacked in that position that something has to work. I don't agree with that, but if it was a choice of a goalkeeper or a midfielder or a striker, purely because of the numbers and the potential. So we do need a midfielder. I agree with that, wholeheartedly agree with that. But I think because we're so stacked in the potential in there, like a Mainu, Ugarte, we do, Fernandes can play in there. So whether I think there can be good, and I think that would be a risk to bet your house on them, we do have numbers in there. So I do think it's a position that we need, and we can talk about that. That is a position that we are now looking at. Casemiro's in there, so we've got numbers in there. Whereas striker, we don't have numbers, and a goalkeeper, we don't have numbers either. So I think you can go either way on that. For me, I think I'd still go striker, because I still think we need goals. I think goals win you games. Onana for me, will the amount of points lost from Onana be counteracted by the amount of points you gained from somebody who can stick the ball in the back of the net? And that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to get 2. I think the 2 are intrinsically linked, but if you're asking me where I'd go, I think I'd go for a striker, because I think we need to get that ball in the back of the net. I don't really see Bruno working in that midfield pivot and will cost us games. I tell you what, you're coming at with some amazing comments here. Yeah, Fernandes didn't look like he wanted to be there. Now, what I will say about that is maybe he is, and as a human being, maybe he's still reeling from obviously the death of his friend, and I think that I know his family are more important and that kind of stuff, but grief and things like that can impact people in a different way. So he didn't look like he wanted to be there. He played in the number 10 role. That for me is his role, but he didn't look like he wanted to be there, and I thought that was abundantly clear. Now let's kind of park that away from the table for a second. He doesn't work in the pivot, and you're 100% correct on that. He's 100% not a pivot player, but where else is he going to play? And Amorim wanting to keep him, I think Amorim's tenure is his how he moves forward is going to be linked to Fernandes. He needs to make Fernandes work in the pivot. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know where he's going to put him, but we need a different Fernandes for next season. So you're totally right. I think Fernandes in discipline. Some games he goes missing. I don't think he ever hides. I think he goes missing in those games, and I think you're right. I think he does need to step his game up. I'm intrigued to see what he does with Fernandes next season. I'd rather a keeper over a striker, as I believe Cunha and In-Burmo will get us goals with Xerxes providing. Interesting. And that's an interesting point. I don't disagree, but I don't agree with it either. I think those goals will definitely help. Amorim is he likes versatile players, so I think I agree on the basis that he might chop and change that. So he might ask those number 10s to sort of interact with that number 9. So you almost get a sort of, you've got those number 10s, you can be a number 9, and maybe he wants to kind of try to move that around, spread out the goal, so the pressure is not on the striker. This is what we don't know. This is the unknown for me. Is if he can't get a striker, what's he doing? Is he trying to come up with 2 systems almost with those front 3? So Xerxes for me is not a striker. I don't know what he's going to do with Xerxes. Has he bought Cunha or an In-Burmo to possibly use them as a striker? So, for example, he didn't have a lot of options with Højlund. So, with that, being able to have a sort of another number 9/10 or somebody that can play in the 10 who's got goals. So Cunha and In-Burmo has got goals, and then Xerxes can kind of then jump into that number 10, and the same as Fernandes as well. So I think you've made some interesting points, and I am very intrigued, very interested to see what he's going to do with that front front 2 or 3. The thing for me that concerns me is because we're very central when we do that, unless the 2 number 10s split, which In-Burmo can do because he's used to playing on the wing. So, you know, I think that can work there. It's the wing backs for me that concern me on what we're going to do with those. What are your thoughts on Mateta from Crystal Palace? I think we should go for him or Watkins personally, as they are Premier League proven players. Mateta, I like Mateta. I think for him it's a do or die now. I think for him it's a are you going to move to a big club? Would he be an expensive option? I think if he was around about the 45 million mark, I think he'd be an option. I think he'd be a good option. I've not heard us linked to him so much. You know, I've not really heard us linked to him. Ollie Watkins again is an interesting one for me. Mateta, I'd stick him on the list. I'd be happy with him. Again, proven, scores goals. I like him as a player. I think the price would probably be about right. I think he's got a year or 2 left on his deal. I think he would be he'd be a good option. Him and In-Burmo, Cunha up front. I think as a trio, I think that would be a good trio, and I'd like to see that. So I'm not against that. I think that's a good shout. Watkins, it's not a no for Watkins. It's the price for me. Premier League proven player, played 54 games last season, 17 goals and 13 assists, or 16 assists, which I thought he played a lot less games than that. Obviously the ratio to goals is not fantastic, but involvements in goals is. So he's an interesting one for me. It's not a no. Ollie Watkins for me is a yes, but the price has to be right and the contract has to be right. Pushing 30. I will wonder how long he's got left before he starts to dip. You know, some strikers can go into their 30s. Look at Kane. You know, I know he's playing in the Bundesliga, and I'm not saying he's a Kane, but if we could guarantee, which you can't, that Ollie Watkins, you give him a 5-year deal, and you know, going into maybe the final year that he kind of tends to dip off being 35, then that's fine. But my concern for Watkins is that you give him a 5-year deal, 200k, 2 years into the deal, he starts to dip, and then you've got him on a 3-year deal, and you cannot do anything with him. So that's my concern on that. It's not the player, it's not the ability. I think he would come and I think he would do fantastically well, but it's the price. If we can get the price down and get the contract and length of contract right, then I'm more than happy with that deal. I really seen us linked with many midfielders. Who do you think we'll go for? Oh, blimey. Is it Balbera for Brighton? I think I've seen us being linked to him now. I know a couple of people have mentioned that in the chat recently, and I think there's that one. Edison, I've not really heard. Edison is the one that I'd go for. Rios would have been the one as well, but he's gone to Benfica. I think that's a travesty that he's gone to Benfica. Ndidi has been mentioned from Leicester. It's not for me. Definitely not a player. But again, the price may be attractive. He's 28 years old. The drop off for me from him, you know, didn't stand out in a Leicester team given all that experience that he's got. So that's kind of a no from me. But again, I think he's so open until names start to be mentioned. But I would like somebody like an Edison for me. Yeah, I think that's where I'd go. Luiz as well. Yeah, Luiz, I would take him on loan. A little bit injured, but again, good price. Premier League proven. Luiz for me, I would happily take a punt on him. So Fabrizio, Yokarez. just won't go away. And I definitely want Arsenal to get this deal done. So if you know Arsenal fans, just get this deal done, because he wants to come to you. He's your player as far as I'm concerned. Just get this done so we can move on. I want to ask the chat, what about striker situation? So striker situation right now, I've been asked. So we've got Mateta, Watkins, Jackson in there, Shesko. I think you can take your pick right now. I do think it has been put out there, and Fabrizio has also been briefed. Ornstein has been briefed, and we can talk about that brief from Ornstein as well, because this, as much as he's very good and he should be listened to, I'm starting to hear a little bit of spin coming out as well. So Fabrizio, Watkins, Jackson won't go away, and that terrifies the hell out of me. Now coming on to Ornstein, who he's done an interview and clearly been briefed by the club as some of the things to say. Now, what Ornstein has pretty much said the same thing as Fabrizio. However, he's sort of gone on to say things like Onana may not actually leave. So it's a decision that still needs to be made. Is if Onana stays, because he's injured now, that we can't then obviously bring in a number one. Whether that's the plan anyway, or is the plan because obviously we can't make a book loss on Onana, so do we bring in a Seny Lemens to bring him in, and obviously with the intention of ousting Onana? But the danger there with that is Lemens is obviously a risk, a calculated price risk, and what I mean by that is the price is not too high, so you're not going over the top in price, but there is a good keeper there. You never know what could come of that. If you get this keeper position right and you sign him for 15 million and he actually turns out fantastic, he's 23 years old, got the world at his feet really at 23 years old, then actually you've done like some business there. He's touted as an ex-Courtois. Everybody is, right? So it's for them to decide, and I think the fact that Onana's still there, I again, based on Fabrizio, based on Ornstein, based on a couple of others, based on sort of reports coming out, that United were basically preparing themselves to make a bid for Seny Lemens, but that's gone a little bit quiet. So I wonder if they're still trying to decide. So I think Garnacho will play a part in this as well. I think we need a left wing back. I'm gutted. Yeah, he's not yet. That's right, he went to AC Milan, didn't he? Left wing back. Again, these are all positions that I'd like to see strengthened up. And actually, that's a good segue into an Ornstein comment that he made. So one of the comments that Ornstein basically made, he was basically saying that obviously United want to do a load of business, but they can't do all of their business. And I quote him here. He basically said that all the transfers they want to do may not come in this summer. They may leave some for the January window. What a load of nonsense. Obviously Ornstein obviously been briefed by the club. What he says, and what he says, I'll bring it in here. And I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to what he's got to say regarding the transfers, but also don't be fooled by the fact that Ornstein is briefed by the club and it's pretty much his job in some respects that's the price you pay when you deal with the devil. Then there's a price to pay. Now, the fact that he's coming out with stuff like this, that we may not get all of the targets, what does that mean? Number one. and I get that. Like you said there, we do need a probably another wing back. I don't know if we've got enough there. Leon, for me, physically look fine, fast, but for those of you who think he's going to come in and cook, that's just not going to happen. He's too young. I might be wrong this one, but I don't think I am. I think he's going to need a season or two to adjust, and that's perfectly fine. Perfectly acceptable. But what he does have already is physicality. He does have pace, so it's going to stand him in good stead. But for those who want him as your starting left back, right back, wherever he's going to play, that's not there. So Ornstein has already come out and trying to temper, after the In-Burmo thing, after the Shesko thing, he's already started the old spin with not all of the transfers may come in this year, and we may do some business in the January window. That's pure club. That's pure. We get this every single year. Oh, we may do stuff in the January. We never do. So for Ornstein to come out and say that, I feel like that's a little bit. That's a very much club led on that. It's already tempering expectations to do business in a window we traditionally don't do business in, and I don't expect us to do business in that window because there's no value in the market, blah 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 blah. So for Ornstein to come out and say that, I think that's a little bit, whether you agree with me or not. Ornstein, another guy, he seems like a really, really nice, good guy. He obviously gets a bunch of stuff, and credibility wise, fantastic. But when you play those games and you want stuff out, then you've got to toe the party line. So he's clearly towing the party line there, it's just the January window comment for me is just, I just ignore that completely, and that's the kind of bit for me whereby United, don't ever be fooled that United won't ever try and spin you, because that's what they're doing already. When he says, as far as I really want the manager to succeed, I just don't see it happening. He's set up to fail, in my opinion. I'm liking these comments today. I'm liking your comments. We think quite a lot, actually. We do think quite a lot. So I do watch a load of other channels, and I consume so much information, and the consensus, or the kind of the shift now seems to be that Amrin's getting all these players that he wants, and and I've said it as well, that even when he gets his players, he's got no excuse, and he is now over to him. But we do need to temper this with, he's only got 2 players. We finished 15th last season. Terrible season. And other than Rashford, who wasn't here, Sancho wasn't here, Garnacho, okay, played. You could argue that Anthony wasn't here. He's still got the same players. Like In-Burmo, great. In-Burmo and Cunha on their own, they're 2 players. That's not enough, and we need to really temper. And I'm not trying to detract from what we're trying to do. There are reports out there. United love the reports out there. They love the media spin. It gets more clicks. It gets them money. Don't ever be naive enough to think that this club doesn't know what it's doing from a social media standpoint, because it absolutely does. But we still have the same players as last, and we finished 15th. So you just need to let that sink in. Great, expectations are good, but if you watch that Leeds game, which I did, I'm going to do another watch along for the other games, because I'm really intrigued now to see what we do. He has only signed 2 players. Then when I hear from Ornstein, not all players may come in, and some players may come in the January window. He has only got 2 players. I was watching something whereby it was said that the situation that United, they've done well. So United apparently have done well in the situation that they're in now, right? What situation is this? Is this a situation that they've put themselves in? Is this a situation whereby this club has been destroyed from the inside out for the last 12, 13 years? Is this a situation whereby Ineos came in, bailed out the Glazers and kept all of the debt, even though they did a strategic review of the club? Is this the situation whereby apparently we had a list of candidates and things like that from April, yet we balls that up and now we're using a scattergun approach? So what situation are we supposed to be like pleased with? They spent 7 weeks negotiating a deal, and with a club, and this is no disrespect to them, who have to still go through the stadium through somebody's house, who were in the Championship League One not so long ago. They got what they wanted. So what situation? I don't understand. From, I'm not calling anyone out here, but this is from what I've seen. What situation have we pulled back from the fire yet? Like, I don't understand what the praise that they seem to be having now is. But we've only complete, and Ornstein has put this out there as well, that, you know, are we doing well? There are lots of other clubs out there who have not done the business that we have, and we need to be patient. Are you joking? Like, are you actually joking, right? Liverpool have done their business. They just get on and do their business. Chelsea have done their business. City have done the business. Newcastle are starting to do the business. So this is now where we need to be wise as a fan base, with people like Ornstein. As much as I respect Ornstein and he clearly gets stuff from the club, this is him towing the party line. United haven't done well. We're not doing well. We've got 2 players. We spent 7 weeks negotiating, and Sir Jim was always, we want to walk to a decision that's right and not run to a bad one. Mate, you walked to a decision, not that it was bad, but you walked to one and you paid the selling club what they wanted. You're supposed to be this global branded club, and a club who are traditionally a lesser club schooled you. So I don't really get how are we doing this. So just don't fall for this spin, not even from people like Ornstein. So what he said is, and I'll come back to that point where, and that's the point I was trying to make there, and I'll come back to that as well. I also think it's shocking that he hasn't got any players from Sporting since he made the team and the system. Yokarez and Quenda both going to our rivals. Well, Eden, mate, you should do this show. 100%. You should do this show. Back to my original little rant there. I agree with you. What is he being set up to do here? Amron, he needs players in, but what is he ultimately being set up to do? Fine, we've got rid of Rashford. Sancho hasn't gone yet. So Garnacho is still here. Anthony is still here. Okay, so will we get these players out? Great. But they weren't really in the first team anyway. So how is he being set up to succeed? And this is staunchly going against Ornstein's point that we're doing well compared to other clubs. We're not. Our rivals, or our older top 4 ones, they're not, are they? Liverpool have done their business early. City have done their business early. Arsenal are doing their business, even though they can't get one player over the line. They still done their business. So what we're trying to get apparently into this top 4. We're trying to win a title by 2028. And the fact that, as we said, just said there in the chat, Yokarez should be at this club. Why is he not here? Quenda, why is Quenda not here? Like, Quenda was a deal to do. Like, it was a deal that Amorim wanted to do. He was his number 1, and we couldn't get it done. So for all this, the position that we're in under the circumstances, and that we're doing quite well compared to other clubs. Ornstein's just spinning the club. He's spinning the club along. We're not doing well. Like, Quenda's signed for Chelsea. like months ago, a player that should be at this club has been signed by a rival club, even though the manager literally brought this player through, literally weaned him from a baby. He changed his nappies and then brought him into the first team, and yet we're so inept we couldn't even get that done for the manager. So right now, I've been positive over the last couple of days because I could see things happening, but now I'm starting to once again being brought back down with all these spinning plays, all this spin from Ornstein. This, Fabrizio in some respects is distancing himself from that spin. Ornstein's well involved in that spin. He's lapping up that spin as we speak. He's doing the club's work because, as I say, you do a deal with the devil, and eventually you've got to pay for that. So Ornstein, in regards to his opinions on the club, I'd take it with a pinch of salt because he's just relaying what the club want, and it's been tempered down. I really feel like it has been tempered down because obviously since the In-Burmo stuff, I think they know the striker is going to be a difficult one to do. The market for the striker has been inflated again. Ekitike, I don't think's really helped. 78 mil. Again, that's Frankfurt's. That's what they want to do, and that's the market. So United clearly don't want to pay top back for a striker, contrary to what I said yesterday, contrary to some of the reports that were coming out. The fact that Ornstein has now dropped this and Romano has, I think United are really trying to kind of temper this down. I think we should go for Šeško. I generally believe Šeško would be a great deal. Yokarez, I want to move on from him. I just want Arsenal to get that deal done. Yokarez, for me to be clear, is if we could sign him, if we could get him done, let's just get it done, right? I think as an Amorim player, to go back to the chat, as an Amorim player who he brought through, well, not brought through, but brought him into the club and played his system, I still cannot believe that we don't have any sporting players and we've not got Yokarez deal done. We should have just gone to his house to get him. So Steve B. Henry says, hi, hello, how are we doing today? Well, he says, where do you think Garnacho will end up? I think he's still being here is an issue. He is an issue. I don't think he's an issue in terms of, I don't think he has an impact on the youth players. He's obviously been told to train alone. I think he's distanced himself from the club. He doesn't want to do, he's disrespected the fans. I think the biggest issue for me with him being here is the fact that he represents money. He represents a chunk of money that we need. And also as well, he's been very, very obstinate in his viewpoint. He wants to go to a Premier League team, he wants this and he wants that. Well, then he needs to accept if that's what he wants to do, particularly with the World Cup coming up. Then it might not be the club that he wants, and we need to leverage that against. If we want a player, then maybe we leverage him against the player. So he needs to accept if he wants to play in the Premier League, he may not go to a club that he thinks he will. There's a World Cup year. He needs to play in a World Cup. But from our perspective, we obviously need to make some money. In terms of a market value, United want 60 million. I think I don't think they'll get that. But I think 45, 50 million, I think is sort of where we're sort of hedging our bets. But whether or not we can get that done soon is going to be a very interesting one. Where do you I think you... So... And I have to give them credit here. So the United stand, I have to give them credit because they've come out and said this before anyone else did, that Napoli was the destination for him, and apparently still so. There's still an option there. Chelsea again are still sniffing around. If they went 80 million for Jackson, then then they can have him for 100 million. I think Villa, you don't wear a Villa shirt for no reason. I think Villa or Chelsea. I think Napoli was the destination. I do. I think that deal was there to be done. I think he's put the kibosh on that. I think he did. I don't think he wants to go there. So I think this Premier League move is pushed by him and his team. So I would say Aston Villa and then Chelsea. But right now, I don't think anything is off of the table. Steve Henry says, but I don't think the deal for Yokarez will happen. Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're being used. Excuse me. The only thing that I will say is that we're not squashing it. The fact that Fabrizio's come out, even though he gets briefed by the club, okay. What I like about Fabrizio right now, as opposed to Ornstein, is that Ornstein is clearly the mouthpiece of the club and saying stuff. Fabrizio is tempering expectations really well. So he's saying that, you know, we're not looking at strikers. We clearly are. We're clearly in talks with Šeško. Clearly are. I'm just saying that now, right? Even though Romano is saying that we're not really in talks with them. We are. We are in talks with Šeško. We've been looking at this play for 3 years. We are trying to get this deal done. We're trying to get this price down. We are in talks. I'm convinced. I don't believe that for a second. And Yokarez, I think we need to close this down. I am tired. It's almost a bit like something that you really, really want. Someone else has it. But there might be an opportunity that they don't. And they never quite close the door on it. They never quite say, well, it's not really going to happen. We're going to close the door on it. I want to close the door on it. Look, Arsenal want him, right? It's Arsenal's deal to do. Arsenal deal to lose. Please, Arsenal, just go and get this deal done. Or United, come out and close this down. Just come out and close it down. Either go and get him or close it down. That's it. Just go and make a public play, go and get him, or close it down. And then we can sort of end this whole charade, because, as I said a month ago, I'm over it, I'm done, we need to move on. Catch up with some of the chat. So Willie says, why have you not gone for Osimhen? And after Yokarez not being available, we should have pushed it for him, in my opinion. Osimhen, the wages are too high. And I don't necessarily think it was, well, with hindsight, if you look at what's had to be paid for him, so it's 40 up front. So Galatasaray I've had to pay 40 up front, 35 next summer, with an additional 20% pay on clause. And he can't be signed for another Italian team in the next 2 years. Also, his wages after tax are about 300 and something K. So I think we were priced out of that deal immediately, and that's why we didn't go for that deal. Now, whether you can obviously have your opinion on that and say, well, actually, are his goals worth that? So, if, for example, we paid that money and it got us into top 4, we get back to the Champions League, then, but you're taking a risk there, right? And do we need to be taking risks on a proven player? Potentially we do, but it really depends on what your mindset is. Mine is no. For him, we would have had to have paid him close to £480,000 a week after tax for him to be able to match the wages, and he didn't want to take a pay cut. So, Osimhen, I agree. I think that maybe we tried, but I think after the financial package, which he clearly wanted to have, is something that we just couldn't match. So I think he priced himself out of a move, and good luck to him. He's managed to get what he wants. So it's a bit sad that I don't blame the player, but from a financial perspective, I'm glad that we didn't do that deal. As much as I like the player, I'm glad that we didn't do the deal. So Temisken is in the chat. I butcher his name every time. Thank you for being in the chat. United make plan for Yokarez, Simmons, Taliso, Fermin Lopez, Ndidi to United is better for next season, please. And you've been quite adamant on those players. And again, I think you do make some good suggestions. Simmons in there. Xavi Simmons is an interesting one. Very expensive though. Is it Leipzig as well? Want 60 million for him. So I don't know if that's let's get rid of that. I don't know if that's a bit too much. I think after a goalkeeper and a striker, I think we are to get. I think that sort of player is one for next season if he's still around. I don't disagree, but I think that we know what this ownership is like, and we're not going to do what he's doing, particularly after the update from Ornstein being the mouthpiece for this club right now, basically saying that we kind of need to temper expectations because not all players will come this year. So I think that that's you need to be realistic as a fan base as to what we're actually going to do. Tolisso, again, I think that's a one to look at. Fermin Lopez, again, these are all players that. This is why I love this chat. The week that you guys come up with, we can talk about these players, but ultimately, this club they should be on their list, right? But they're ultimately not, because they're not as smart as us fans, and certainly not as smart as you guys in the chat. Ndidi's an interesting one. Ndidi for me is, I wouldn't sign him to solve our midfield issue. I would this is what I would go with him is Ndidi coming for numbers. I mean, for 5-6 million, 28 years old, happy days, right? But he wouldn't be my sign in that position. What I would do with that is I don't like to, but Collier for me is the one that either needs to go on loan or get sold. So I would maybe with a clause in there. So Collier for me would be the one to make way, and then we get a midfielder as well. So we then have that basis covered. So you'd have him. So you'd have him, you'd have Casemiro. Casemiro for me is the one that when he goes, that's when we're going to get that superstar centre midfield player. So potentially Casemiro, Ndidi, then you'd have Fernandez, Ugarte in there as well, Mainu, and one more, and then I'd be reasonably comfortable with that until next season, and then you would then go and get maybe a kind of more expensive one. Tolisso, don't think Victor Yokarez will sign for United because he wants to play in the Champions League. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I don't disagree. Yokarez was very up front. Basically said it's not a no to us, but what it is he wants to play in the Champions League, and I can't. This is the repercussions of that final. These are the repercussions of this club not backing the manager in the window. Apparently, the window that we're going to use next season if we don't get all of the signings, pile of nonsense. We never use that. So just be. What I am going to say is, obviously, let's be excited about signings, positivity about the team, but don't be fooled by the. Ornstein's very good, but don't be fooled by the opinion that kind of comes out. I'm going to try and just adjust the brightness because it's bugging me. That's what we do. Probably see my camera now come up, and you can tell because it'll come up in the old thing. There you go. It's going to bug me now because it's not going to go away. So take it with a pinch of salt, particularly when it comes to now tempering stuff. So that I'd almost have not a perfect excuse now, but they do have a bit of an excuse whereby we're not going to get all of the signings done as such. I should not have touched that camera because now I've got a bloody box in there. It's going to bug the life out of me until it goes away. So I agree, Yokarez, as is his right to do. He's only got one career. This is his last kind of paycheck, his last big contract, and it's within his right basically to move to a club that plays Champions League. I'm just disappointed that we couldn't. I'm disappointed that Amorim couldn't convince him to come to this club, but it is what it is. The only thing I'm asking, I'm literally asking Arsenal fans or Ornstein, even the mouthpiece of the club, Ornstein, come out and shut this down. You're not closing this down right now. So I want Ornstein, of all the things to do, is use his influence and come out and basically shut this down. As we're talking, I'm gonna have a little look as well now, just to see because everything that seems to come out or is always as I just stop or I'm just about to do something else, Romano or Ornstein or Crook or whoever else comes out and breaks stuff. So yeah, nothing new right now. So I think pretty much caught up. Yokarez. Oh, I don't know if you can see that there. Probably can't see that, but Fabrizio there. So basically, you can't see that. But yeah, he's not closing it down. Ornstein's not closing it down. Yeah, there's nothing else happening right now. So I think that there's going to be a lot of. I think it's going to be a quiet. I think it's going to be a quietish couple of days. Obviously, we go on tour today, I believe it is. So we fly out, and I just sort of now. This is where we kind of will start getting some of this spin. So if Ornstein or someone else comes out and starts kind of spinning this stuff about, we're not going to be taken for mugs in this market again, and we're because they obviously thought that they could bring the In-Burmo price down, but they haven't. So the repercussions of that, no matter how good a deal it was, and again, splitting the deal up is fine, but there is a bit of an impact, obviously, because it kind of means that we didn't want to spend that money there. We wanted to spend it on a striker. So I this week for me is now about being linked to players. I think we all know, striker wise, what we're doing. So I think it's quite abundantly clear we're looking at Mateta again. We are looking at Šeško. Šeško for me is the one. I don't think we're talking, but I don't think we are close to getting that done at all. So I think we're in talks there. Jackson for me, I think we're in talks about him. I think that would be an absolute ridiculous deal to do. I don't know whoever's attached to that one needs to quickly detach themselves from that deal. Ollie Watkins, again, he's been mentioned. Calvert-Lewin, I'm convinced. I've been saying this since I started channel. I've been saying this, and as many of you have as well. Calvert-Lewin, I'm not saying he's going to be the main striker, but Calvert-Lewin on a free. Somebody came on and said actually that Lewin would do a job and he won't be the worst signing in the world. Yesterday, I think he's played on 26 games, scored 3 goals with 2 assists. What job is he going to do? Is he going to be a kit man? Is he going to wash people's boots? I don't know. He'll keep Luke Shaw company. That's pretty much what he will do. So there is Vardy as well. Vardy for me is a no. I can't remember who said it on here as well, that Vardy might get 10 to 15 goals for us. I don't think that's happening. I wouldn't mind him as an additional striker, but than if we had a Shesko, a Vardy, and an OB. Is that enough? That is my question that I put there. Like, we need 3 strikers. In my opinion, we need 3 strikers. Højlund wants to stay. So again, this is according to Fabrizio, that Højlund wants to stay and fight for his place. If he's told to go, then he will go. But Højlund wants to stay and fight for his place. Do you think he deserves the opportunity? Do you think he should? Do you think that it's worth keeping him, getting in a less expensive striker that he can learn from? So Watkins. So do we go down the road of a Watkins, Højlund stays to learn from Watkins, with the view that we're going to invest in Højlund and we're going to do everything we possibly can to get him to number 1? So, or would we be happy with a Watkins, a Højlund, and an OB supporting? Or do we go, no, Højlund, we're going to cut our losses on you now, hopefully get some sort of good deal, get rid of him, but then we do need another 2 strikers. We can't have OB and a Shesko. We need Shesko, somebody else, and an OB. And if that was the case, then I would prefer a free striker. So maybe then we're talking of Vardy. Calvert-Lewin is not for me. But if that was the option to bring in a free option, but Lewin would be expensive. Vardy, I don't think he would be as expensive, but it really depends on what the club want to do and how much they want to back the manager. I know we've only got 38 games, but if you're serious about having an assault and thinking about injuries as well, we need to be clear on what it is that we're trying to do. Are we just going to sign a singular striker, but we will then have OB in the wings, somebody like a Shesko up front, and then Xerxes may be that kind of striker? He's not a striker, but can he do a job there? I don't just want him to do a job. I don't just want a job, I want specialists. But are we going to Xerxes, Cunha, In-Burmo can all fill in that sort of... Because when you put Fernandes in there as well, so you've basically got 4 number 10s. And is it going to be a case of we'll have a main striker, but then we're going to be able to almost do an Arsenal, not play with a striker and interchange those number 10s, and maybe we've got a pecking order of who could go up front. So Xerxes, he didn't play against Leeds, so as long as that's explained to me, if Amrin can explain to me his mindset and his position as to what he's going to do, then I'd be more comfortable. But right now I don't know what he's planning to do with having all those number 10s and no midfielder. That we need a midfielder in that pivot. You can make do with a Ugarte, you can sort of make do with a Manu in there, trying to get him to learn that position. But we need that number 8. We need that. I think we need a number 8, maybe a number 6 even. I think we need either a proper holding midfielder or a defensive-minded box-to-box player. That's what I think. That's what I think that we need there in that position. So there's all sorts of ways that we can mix this team, but we mustn't forget, and this is really fundamental, particularly with Ornstein's update, that concerns me about talking about we're not going to get all of our targets. We may need to leave some for the January window, a window which we never do business in. We need to say this, we never do business in that window. This is why we need to now keep up. Let's not buy into this whole, you can if you want to, and if you do, positivity. I was positive last week, but now I'm starting to get back into the real world, the real spin, the way this club likes to spin this around. We can't be fooled by that, because the moment we are, that's when they let the foot off of the gas. So this week for me is going to be it's going to highlight this week to me as to what it is we're gonna try to do and where we're going to go. If the striker, what we'll do with the goalkeeper and the midfielder, I think will be clearer when we know what we're doing with the striker. I think striker for the club may not be what we want to do, but for the club I think is the next pivotal position. So where we go and how we spend the money for a striker will dictate the goalkeeper and what we do with that. If we go for Šeško, I can't see us going for that high caliber midfielder that we need, and also I think then that puts the Martinez deal off of the table unless Garnacho can be involved in that swap deal. So this week's going to be an interesting one. I don't think we're going to get a here we go on many things. I'm hoping we get here we goes and players out. Sancho, tired of talking about him. I want him gone. I don't know what is going on there. Juventus, I'm all convinced that they're gonna try to do that. This I want to here we go on Sancho. Anthony as well. We need to start getting updates and we need to get him out. And of course, so Garnacho as well. So if you get any here we goes on that, I'm personally not expecting much noise on concrete, which seems to be the word of the summer. Concrete incomings. I'm expecting now the players to go out, and then of course we've got the tour. So on Sunday I will be doing a watch along later on. But just Fran Kelweed, I say sorry, I pronounce names extremely badly, and I apologise straight away. We need a midfielder plus at least 4. Or do you know what's really an interesting thing for me? Actually, and my mindset was changed as well, is that I was convinced before we played the Leeds game that we needed a striker and a keeper more than anything else, right? The amount of people have come into the chat, the amount of other people I've spoken to, the things I've watched and on what people have said, midfielder now seems to be the position that people have pivoted to. I don't know if I'm in the minority on current situation. After watching that Leeds game, midfield was atrocious. We have no stability in there, no confidence, no leadership in there whatsoever. So we need a midfielder. I am still, and I can be proved wrong in this, because if we don't get a midfielder in or we don't sort that out, then we could have issues. I'm still in the striker camp. We still need a striker, because Amarin to me could be, well, if we concede and we lose the midfield, then actually we can still score more goals than you. That's just the impression that I kind of get. So I think if that's how he's going to play, he needs a striker. If he's going to play that sort of way, not that I agree with playing in that way, but if he's got a set way of playing in his mind, he needs to get those players. So if, like the Leeds game, which was a back 5, let's not kid ourselves that it wasn't. He played a defensive counter back 5 with pseudo wing backs. And if that's how he wants to play, he needs to make damn well sure he's got players to do that, because he hasn't now. So if he's going to play that way, he needs to get players in for that way. And if that's not how he's planning to play, number one, why is he playing that way? Prefix it. It's pre-season. But if he's not planning to play a back 5, then why did he play a back 5? He needs to be playing the tactics he wants to play and get players to suit that. So I don't want to see back 5s. I don't want to see a defensive. What I now need to see is tactics from him as to what he plans to do and get players to suit the system. So if his system is, I am going to score more goals than you, and he doesn't care about the midfield, irrespective of what we think and I think, if that's what he wants to do, he needs to go out and make sure he gets a striker. Then he can live and die off of what he's planned to do. So if he's planning all this stuff, he needs to make sure that he can say, this was my plan, I got my players in, and if the team, for whatever reason, can't do what he's planned to do, or he doesn't get the personnel in to do it. What I don't want to see is I don't want us to go, oh, he planned to play this wing back 3-2-2-1 thing, and it doesn't work. That's not going to save his job. That's not going to save him. So right here, right now, this is my concern. Number one, with the Ornstein interview that he did, basically being the mouthpiece, basically paying for the information that he gets from the club. Let's not forget, fundamental 101, Amorim has got 2 players. One of them's already played, the other one hasn't. He's only got 2 players. The players we're trying to sell, pretty much none of them played for the team other than one. And he's still got the same crap that we had last year that finished 15th. He cannot coach them into 5th, 6th from this position. He cannot do that. He will not do that. And that was abundantly clear in the Leeds game, pre-season or not, how these players reverted back to what they did at the end of last season, and he cannot coach that out of these players. So this is why we need players in. So don't, and I will be positive when I kind of need to be, but we need to be realistic, and we still need to tweeting. The thing is that United do monitor social media. They may not do what we say, but so the more tweets, the more opinions you give out, the more things you say may force them down a road of doing something else. So this is why it's important to keep this up and not just saying, oh, they've done this amazing job, because they haven't. Right now, they haven't. All we've done is sign 2 players. Don't buy into this, that under the circumstances were created by the club, created by Ineos. They had a plan and they couldn't execute the plan. So don't fall into this, feel sorry, we were put in a position that they put themselves in a position. So this week now, I want to see players moved out. We're going to be linked to all sorts of strikers and players. But this week is now, I want to see players out, and then we can then move on to the next targets. Amazing show. I can't believe again it's over an hour. The chat, as always, thanks to everybody in the chat. As always, the chat is amazing. This is pretty much what I do. Thank you for those who've watched. I thank you for giving me your time. I fully, this is not an expectation. This is a privilege for me to do this. The privilege is mine to talk about something I love, and to have people who interact on here. The pleasure is all mine, and I thank you for coming into the chat. My email and X and things like that are out there, so feel free to come and say hello. Feel free to repost stuff. If you want me to retweet stuff, repost stuff, then that's cool. The more interaction, the better. And yeah, just a massive thank you to the chat as always. I always say the best community is on here, the best chats we have on here. We don't limit ourselves. To one opinion. Definitely not limited to mine. I'm open to not necessarily having my mind change, but for us to debate different things, and you then spark different conversations off the players that we talk about on here as well. You educate me as well, as because at times I can still live in the past a little bit. So it's really I thank you really for bringing that into the show. So if anything does break, I will be back. I'm not necessarily expecting it to, but if it does, I'll come back and report the news, and we can give our opinions on it as we always do. So on that note, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, favourite and subscribe. Push this out there, get as many people in the chat, get these conversations started, and of course I'll see you on the